The air in the Citadel of Veronia hung heavy with unspoken dread. Prince Caius, a young man of barely 20, felt it like a physical weight pressing down on him. It wasn't the usual courtly tension, the whispers about alliances and betrayals that were as much a part of the palace as the ornate tapestries. This was different, darker. It had started subtly. A servant found weeping in the scullery, claiming she'd seen shadows move on their own. A guard, usually stoic and unflinching, reporting a feeling of being watched in the empty corridors. Caius had dismissed them at first, attributing it to nerves, to the long hours and the echoing silence of the ancient citadel. But then, his own unease began to grow. He found himself looking over his shoulder, the flickering candlelight in the grand hall seeming to dance with a life of its own. The portraits of his ancestors, stern-faced and regal, appeared to follow him with their eyes, and the silence, when it came, was no longer peaceful, but thick with a sense of waiting. Tonight, the dread was palpable. A storm raged outside, the wind howling like a tormented beast, rattling the windows and making the very stones of the citadel tremble. Inside, the servants moved with a hushed urgency, their faces pale and drawn. Caius moved through the long corridors, his footsteps echoing in the oppressive quiet. He carried a silver candelabrum, its light doing little to dispel the gloom. He reached the west wing, the oldest part of the citadel, where the servants' quarters were located. It was a labyrinth of narrow passages and low-ceilinged rooms, usually bustling with activity. But tonight it was eerily still. He had come seeking Elara, his most trusted confidant among the servants. She was a woman of quiet strength and keen intuition, and he hoped she could shed some light on the growing darkness. He found her in her small chamber, a single candle burning on a wooden table, casting long, dancing shadows on the stone walls. She looked up as he entered, her face etched with worry. "Your Highness," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "you shouldn't be here tonight." "I had to see you," Caius said, his voice low. "I can feel it too, can't I? This presence." Elara nodded slowly. "It's growing stronger. The others, they're terrified. Some of them are talking about leaving, abandoning the citadel." "Leaving? But where would they go? And what is it they feel?" "They don't know," Elara admitted, her gaze fixed on the flickering candle flame. "They just say, it feels ancient, hungry, like the citadel itself is waking up." Caius frowned. "The citadel? That's absurd. It's just stone and mortar." "Is it?" Elara raised her eyes, and Caius saw a deep unease in their depths. "This place is older than any of us know, Your Highness, older than the kingdom itself. There are stories." "Stories?" Caius prompted, though a part of him didn't want to hear them. "Whispers, really," Elara said, "passed down through generations of servants. They say that the citadel was built on a place of power, a place where the veil between worlds is thin, and that sometimes something stays." "What kind of thing?" Caius asked, his hand tightening on the candelabrum. Elara hesitated, then spoke in a hushed tone. "They say it's a guardian, or a prisoner, something ancient and powerful, bound to this place. But sometimes, when the stars are right, when the storms are strong, it can reach out." A shiver ran down Caius's spine. He didn't believe in old wives' tales, in legends and superstitions. But the fear in Elara's eyes, the oppressive atmosphere of the citadel, it was hard to dismiss. "Reach out for what?" he asked. "For life," Elara said, her voice barely audible. "For the life force of the living. It feeds on it, they say, and when it awakens, the citadel, it changes." Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the corridor, cutting through the howling of the wind. Caius and Elara exchanged a look of horror. "That came from the kitchens," Elara said, her face pale. "We have to go." Caius nodded, raising the candelabrum higher, and they hurried out of the chamber, their footsteps echoing in the now terrifying silence. They moved through the dark passages, their hearts pounding in their chests, the screams still ringing in their ears. They reached the kitchens to find chaos. Servants were huddled together, their faces white with terror, some weeping, others frozen in fear. The source of the scream lay in the center of the room, a young kitchen maid, lying on the cold stone floor, her eyes wide with glassy, unseeing stare. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and a strange, cold energy seemed to emanate from her. Caius knelt beside her, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch her. Her skin was ice-cold, like touching a corpse. He recoiled in horror. She's not dead," he whispered, "but she's empty." Elara nodded, her face grim. "It's taken her life force, just like the stories say." At that moment, a low, guttural growl echoed from the shadows at the far end of the kitchen. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate through the very stones of the Citadel, a sound that spoke of ancient power and unimaginable hunger. The servants screamed again, scattering like leaves in the wind. Caius and Elara stood their ground, their eyes fixed on the darkness, the candelabrum shaking in Caius's hand. Slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, its form shifting and indistinct, like a heat haze. Its eyes glowed with malevolent light, and a cold, palpable aura of death surrounded it. It was not human, not animal, but something else, something ancient and terrifying. The creature glided towards them, its movements fluid and unnatural. The servants who hadn't fled cowered against the walls, their eyes wide with terror. Caius felt a surge of adrenaline, his fear momentarily replaced by a surge of protectiveness. He stepped in front of Elara, raising the candelabrum like a weapon. "Stay back!" he shouted, his voice trembling slightly. "What are you? What do you want?" The creature didn't answer. It simply continued to advance, its glowing eyes fixed on Caius, on the life force that pulsed within him. Caius knew, with a chilling certainty, that this was the entity from the stories, the ancient guardian or prisoner of the Citadel, and it had awakened. He had to protect his people. He had to protect Elara. He was a prince of Veronia, and he would not let this thing take any more lives. He charged. It was a foolish, desperate act, but it was all he could think of. He swung the candelabrum with all his might, the silver striking the creature's form. There was a sickening sound, like metal hitting wet flesh, and the creature recoiled slightly. But it was not harmed. The silver had passed through its shifting form as if it was smoke. The creature lashed out with a speed that belied its size, its hand, tipped with long, sharp claws, reaching for Caius. Elara screamed, but it was too late. The claws struck Caius's chest, tearing through his tunic and into his flesh. Caius cried out in pain, stumbling backward. He could feel his life force draining away, the cold, empty feeling spreading through his body. He fell to his knees, the candelabrum slipping from his grasp, his vision blurring. Elara rushed to his side, her face a mask of horror. "Caius! No! Get away!" Caius gasped, his voice weak. "It wants life!" The creature advanced on them, its glowing eyes fixed on Caius, its hunger insatiable. Elara, tears streaming down her face, stood between the creature and the prince. "No!" she cried. "You won't take him. You won't take anyone else." She had nothing to defend herself with, no weapon, no magic, only her courage, her love for Caius, and a desperate hope. She reached out and touched the creature's arm. A jolt of energy, cold and malevolent, surged through her. She gasped, but she didn't pull away. She focused all her will, all her love, all her life force, and pushed it into the creature. It was a desperate gamble, a foolish act of defiance. But something unexpected happened. The creature recoiled, its form flickering and unstable. It hissed, a sound of pain and confusion. The cold energy that surrounded it began to dissipate. Elara continued to pour her life force into the creature, her own strength fading, her vision blurring. She felt herself weakening, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Slowly, agonizingly, the creature began to shrink, its form becoming less solid, less defined. Its glowing eyes dimmed, and its guttural growls became whimpers. And then, with a final, shuddering sigh, it was gone. Elara collapsed to her knees, her body trembling, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She had done it. She had driven the creature away. But at what cost? Caius, his strength returning slowly, reached out and took her hand. "Elara," he whispered, his voice filled with awe and gratitude. "You saved us. You saved me." Elara looked at him, her eyes filled with a deep love. "I couldn't let it take you," she said, her voice weak but firm. "I couldn't let it take anyone else." The other servants, who had watched the confrontation in stunned silence, began to stare. They rushed to Elara's side, their faces filled with gratitude and relief. They had been saved, not by the strength of a prince, but by the courage of a servant. But the danger was not yet over. The creature had been driven away, but the citadel was still filled with its dark energy. The veil between worlds had been breached, and who knew what else might come through? Caius knew that he had to act. He had to find a way to seal the breach, to restore the balance of the citadel before it was too late. He stood, drawing strength from Elara's touch, and addressed the servants. "We must find the source of this power," he said, his voice stronger now, filled with a newfound determination. "We must find the place where the veil is thin, and we must seal it." The servants, inspired by Elara's courage and Caius's resolve, nodded in agreement. They would follow him wherever he led. And so, the prince and the servants, united by a common threat, set out to explore the ancient citadel, to delve into its darkest secrets, and to confront the ancient power that threatened to consume them all. The storm outside still raged, but inside, a new storm was brewing, a storm of courage, of sacrifice, and of the desperate hope for survival.